I went out one night with my boss instead of him, and he took it to heart and decided to leave me. I'm standing in our bathroom on a Friday evening, carefully applying my mascara while my husband Ethan leans against the doorframe. He's already dressed in his favorite dark blue button down shirt, the one I got him for his birthday last year. His hair is still slightly damp from the shower, and he smells like that expensive cologne I splurged on last Christmas. Are you almost ready? He asks, checking his watch. We should head out soon if we want to make the reservation. I glance at him in the mirror. At 36, Ethan is still handsome in that understated way that attracted me to him 5 years ago when we first met. Reliable, steady, the kind of man who remembers birthdays and never forgets to put the toilet seat down. Just 5 more minutes, I promise, though I know it'll be at least 15. I'm Natalie, 32, marketing executive at Reynolds and Burke, and tonight is supposed to be our date night. Ethan has been planning this evening for weeks, dinner at Maison, that new French restaurant downtown that has a 3-month waiting list. He somehow pulled strings to get us a reservation for our anniversary. My phone buzzes on the countertop. I glance down and see my boss's name flash across the screen, Michael Davis. I pick it up immediately. Hello? Natalie. Michael's voice has that urgent edge to it. I need a huge favor. The clients from Singapore are in town unexpectedly, and they want to discuss the campaign tonight. Jeremy was supposed to take them out, but his kid just broke his arm, and he's at the emergency room. I feel that familiar rush of importance, being needed, being essential. They specifically asked about you, Michael continues. Said they were impressed with your presentation last month. This could be huge for us, for you. I know it's last minute. I glance at Ethan, who's scrolling through his phone, patiently waiting. In my head, I think, Ethan will understand. He always does. This is my career we're talking about. What time? I ask Michael, already mentally selecting a different outfit. 8 o'clock. La Scala. I'll be there, I say quickly, ending the call. Ethan looks up. Everything okay? That was Michael, I say, already wiping off my lipstick. Emergency client meeting, the Singapore account. They're in town unexpectedly, and Jeremy had a family emergency. Ethan's face falls slightly, but he recovers quickly. Tonight, but our reservation. I know, I say, moving past him to the closet. But this is important. They specifically asked for me. I feel a twinge of pride saying that part. We can reschedule, right? Maybe they can fit us in next weekend. He's quiet for a moment. It's our anniversary, he says softly. I pause, dress shirt in hand. We can celebrate tomorrow. I'll make it up to you, I promise. I'm already mentally rehearsing my presentation points, barely registering the disappointment clouding his eyes. You said that last month when you canceled for the conference call, he reminds me. And then we never did. This is different, I insist, feeling a flash of irritation. This is career-defining stuff, Ethan. The Singapore account could mean a promotion. I don't add that it could also mean more late nights, more business trips, more time away from home. He sighs, that quiet, resigned sound I've started to hear more often lately. Fine, go ahead. Don't be like that, I say, slipping into my power dress, the black one with the subtle slit up the side. It's just dinner. It's never just dinner, he mutters, but I pretend not to hear him. An hour later, I'm sitting at La Scala, surrounded by the Singapore clients, laughing a bit too loudly at Mr. Tan's joke about American coffee. The wine is flowing, and I'm in my element. Charming, professional, indispensable Natalie. My phone buzzes with a text from Ethan. Hope your meeting is going well. I ended up getting takeout and watching that documentary we talked about. It was pretty good. I read it quickly and put my phone away without responding. I'll text him later. I think. Right now, I need to focus. Your husband must be very understanding, remarks Mrs. Lim, the CEO's wife, as she sips her wine. These late business dinners. Oh, Ethan, absolutely, I say confidently. He knows how important my career is. Then, without thinking, I add, besides, he's not exactly the life of the party, probably having more fun at home with Netflix than he would have been here. The table laughs, and I laugh with them, riding high on the success of the evening. I don't think twice about what I've just said. I don't make it home until after midnight. The apartment is dark except for the small lamp in the living room. Ethan is asleep on the couch, or at least he appears to be. There's an empty takeout container on the coffee table, next to a half-empty glass of whiskey, a rare sight, as Ethan rarely drinks hard liquor. I kick off my heels and pad quietly across the room, feeling the pleasant buzz of wine and success. I place a light throw blanket over him, not wanting to wake him. As I turn to head to the bedroom, his voice stops me. "How was your important dinner?" he asks, his voice unnervingly even. I jump slightly. "I thought you were asleep." "Clearly," he says, sitting up. In the dim light, his face looks different somehow, closed off in a way I've never seen before. "The dinner was great," I say brightly. "I think we've got the account locked down. Michael was really impressed." "I'm sure he was," Ethan says, standing up. He's still in his button-down, though it's wrinkled now. "You know, I ran into Jeremy at the convenience store when I was getting ice cream. Funny thing, his kids were with him, all perfectly healthy." My stomach drops. "What? No broken arms? No emergency room visits? He said he was giving you and Michael space to work your magic with the clients." Ethan's voice is cool, detached. There must be some misunderstanding," I stammer, "but we both know there isn't." "You lied to me," he says simply, "on our anniversary." That's what Michael told me," I backpedal. "Maybe Jeremy lied to him." Ethan just looks at me, disappointment radiating from him. "You know what hurts more than the lie? Mrs. Tan called while you were in the bathroom." My blood runs cold. "What? She wanted to thank you for the wine recommendation. She mentioned how funny you were, especially your joke about your boring husband who's better off at home." His voice doesn't break, but something in his eyes does. "I didn't say that," I protest weakly. "Not like that. It was just business talk." "It's always just business, isn't it?" He reaches for his keys on the counter. "I'm going for a drive." "Ethan, come on, it's late. Let's talk about this tomorrow when we're both less tired." I reach for his arm, but he steps away from my touch. "I think we've both said plenty tonight," he replies, and walks out the door. I stand there in our silent apartment, still in my black dress, the taste of expensive wine lingering on my lips, wondering how an evening that felt like such a triumph could suddenly feel like such a devastating loss. I wake up alone the next morning, sprawled across our king-sized bed. Ethan's side remains untouched, the pillows still perfectly arranged. I grab my phone from the nightstand and check for messages. Nothing. "He's just cooling off," I mutter to myself. "He'll be back." I think Ethan never stays mad for long. That's not who he is. By dinner time, he'll be home and we'll sort this out. I make coffee and try to distract myself by reviewing work emails. There's already one from Michael. "Fantastic job last night. Mr. Tan called me this morning. They're on board. Let's discuss your role in heading up the Singapore expansion on Monday." Normally, this would thrill me. Today, it feels hollow. By noon, I've called Ethan 3 times. Each call goes straight to voicemail. I send a text. "I'm sorry about last night. Please come home so we can talk." No response. Around 2, the apartment door opens and my heart leaps. But it's just Ethan, coming to grab some clothes. He looks tired, the kind of tired sleep can't fix. "Where were you?" I ask, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. "At Mark's," he says, referring to his college friend who lives across town. I follow him into the bedroom, watching as he mechanically pulls items from drawers and places them in a duffel bag. "What are you doing?" I ask, though it's painfully obvious. "Taking some things. I'm going to stay at Mark's for a while." He doesn't look at me as he speaks. "Don't you think you're overreacting?" The words come out before I can stop them, and I immediately regret them. He finally looks at me, his eyes reflecting a sadness that makes my chest ache. "Am I? Last night wasn't an isolated incident, Natalie. It was just the final one." What is that supposed to mean? "It means I've spent the last year becoming increasingly invisible to you," he says calmly. "Your career has always come first, and I've respected that. I've supported that. But somewhere along the way, I became an inconvenience, a joke you tell to clients." "That's not fair," I protest. "It was one comment, and it didn't mean anything." "One comment that perfectly summarized how you see me," he counters. "The boring husband who's better off at home while you're out living your actual life." I feel tears threatening. "That's not how I see you." "Isn't it?" He zips the duffel bag closed. "When was the last time you asked about my day? Or remembered that I had that presentation last week I was nervous about? or notice that I've been taking those photography classes I mentioned wanting to try. I open my mouth to respond, but nothing comes out, because he's right. I can't remember the last time I asked about his work or his interests. In my mind, I think, when did I become this person? I need some space, he says finally, to figure out if there's anything left here worth saving. The word saving hits me like a physical blow. I never thought we'd be a couple that needed saving. Ethan, please, I say, my voice breaking. Don't go. Let's talk about this. We're talking now, he points out. But are you actually hearing me? Or are you just worried about how this affects you? I stand there, stunned by the accuracy of his assessment. I love you, I say, because it's the only truth I'm certain of in this moment. I know you think you do, he replies softly. But love isn't just a feeling, Natalie. It's actions, it's choices. And lately you've been choosing everything else. He picks up his bag and walks past me. At the door, he pauses. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk more. I need to think. And then he's gone, leaving me alone in an apartment that suddenly feels too big and too quiet. Monday morning, I'm sitting in Michael's office. He's beaming at me from across his desk, talking animatedly about the Singapore project and how it's going to fast-track my career. I should be ecstatic. Instead, I keep checking my phone under the desk, hoping for a text from Ethan that doesn't come. So, what do you think? Michael asks, snapping me back to attention. Ready to lead the team? Absolutely, I say automatically, the professional mask sliding into place effortlessly. But inside, I'm thinking, what does any of this matter if I've lost the one person who's always been there for me? Great, we'll need you to fly out to Singapore next week, probably for about 10 days, Michael continues. I know it's short notice. A year ago, even a week ago, I would have jumped at this opportunity without hesitation. Now, all I can think about is that it means 10 more days away from Ethan, 10 more days for the distance between us to grow. Actually, I hear myself saying, I need to check my personal calendar first. Can I let you know tomorrow? Michael looks surprised. This isn't the Natalie he knows, the one who rearranges her life at a moment's notice for work. Sure, he says slowly. Everything okay? Just some family stuff I need to work out, I say vaguely. As I walk back to my office, my colleague Sophia falls in step beside me. We've never been particularly close, but she's been at the company longer than I have and knows everyone. Heard you crushed it with the Singapore clients, she says. Also heard you threw your husband under the bus to do it. I stop walking. Excuse me? She shrugs. Small world. My husband plays basketball with Jeremy's brother-in-law, who's friends with Mr. Tan's assistant. Word travels. It was a joke, I say defensively. A stupid, thoughtless joke. Sure, Sophia says. Just like it was a joke when you told the executive team that you couldn't relate to Karen's work-life balance issues because you married a low-maintenance man, not a child. I feel my face flush hot with shame. I had said that months ago during a meeting when our colleague Karen had asked for more flexible hours because of her son's health issues. Or when you mentioned at the Christmas party that Ethan is conveniently boring, so you never have to worry about him making waves at company events, Sophia continues mercilessly. I didn't mean, save it, she interrupts. Look, we all make sacrifices for our careers, but some of us manage to do it without publicly disrespecting the people who support us at home. She gives me a pointed look. Just something to think about before your next business dinner. She walks away, leaving me standing alone in the hallway, suddenly acutely aware of how my colleagues might see me, and by extension, how I've been seeing myself. That evening, I sit alone in our apartment, surrounded by the life Ethan and I built together. Photos from our honeymoon in Costa Rica, the weird abstract painting we bought at that street fair in Portland, his collection of vintage vinyl records that I used to tease him about but secretly found endearing. I pick up my phone and call my best friend Lisa. He left, I say when she answers, my voice small. What? Who left? Ethan? She sounds genuinely shocked, which makes it worse somehow. Yes, I confirm. After I ditched our anniversary dinner for a work thing and apparently told the clients he was boring. There's a long pause. Oh, Nat, she finally says, her tone a mixture of sympathy and disappointment. I know. I screwed up, I admit, but it was just one comment. One stupid dinner. Was it, though? Lisa asks gently. Because from where I'm sitting, this has been building for a while. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've been putting your job before Ethan for as long as I can remember, she says. Remember when you missed his father's retirement party for that conference in Chicago? Or when you left his birthday dinner early to take a call from Michael? Or how about when he had food poisoning and you still went to that client mixer? Each example feels like a small knife twisting in my gut. I didn't realize it was so obvious, I say quietly. To everyone except you, apparently, Lisa replies. Ethan never complained, at least not to me, but even I could see it was wearing on him. I just thought he understood, that he was okay with it. Maybe he was at first, she suggests, but everyone has their breaking point, Nat, and it sounds like he reached his. I think about all the times Ethan rearranged his schedule for me, all the events he attended alone because I was working late, all the vacations we planned but never took because something important came up at the office. What do I do? I ask, suddenly feeling completely lost. For starters, actually listen to him, Lisa advises, not just to formulate your defense, but to understand and maybe take a hard look at what you really value in life. After we hang up, I sit in the dark, truly seeing myself for the first time in years, and I don't particularly like what I see. 3 days later, I'm standing outside Mark's apartment building, rain pouring down around me. I didn't call ahead, partly because I was afraid Ethan wouldn't agree to see me, and partly because I needed to do this in person. I press the buzzer for apartment 3B, my heart pounding. Hello? Mark's voice crackles through the intercom. It's Natalie, I say. Is Ethan there? I need to talk to him. There's a pause, then the door buzzes open without another word. I climb the stairs slowly, trying to organize my thoughts. What exactly am I going to say? How do I fix years of neglect in one conversation? Mark opens the door before I can knock. His expression is neutral, but not hostile. He's on the balcony, he says, stepping aside to let me in. Been out there for hours, just staring at the rain. Thanks, I say quietly. Mark hesitates, then adds, He's hurting, Natalie. Whatever you're going to say, make sure it's worth hearing. I nod, grateful for his candor, and make my way through the apartment. Ethan is indeed on the small balcony, protected from the rain by an overhanging roof. He's sitting in a chair, a book open but clearly unread in his lap. He looks up when I slide the door open, surprise flashing across his face before settling back into that careful neutrality I've come to dread. Hi, I say, suddenly feeling nervous. Can I join you? He gestures to the empty chair beside him. Free country. I sit down, acutely aware of the physical and emotional distance between us. We both stare out at the rain for a moment. I called in sick to work today, I say finally. First time in 3 years. He looks at me, one eyebrow raised slightly. Why? Because I needed to think, really think, without distractions. I turn to face him fully. And because some things are more important than work, I'm sorry it took me so long to remember that. He doesn't respond immediately. When he does, his voice is quiet but firm. I don't want your apology if it's just words, Natalie. I've heard I'm sorry plenty of times before. I know, I acknowledge. And you're right. Words are easy. It's the actions that matter. I take a deep breath. I turn down the Singapore project. Now I have his full attention. What? Why would you do that? Because it would mean 10 days away from you, from us, when what we need is time together, I explain. And because for once, I wanted to choose you first. He shakes his head slightly. I never asked you to give up opportunities. That's not what this is about. I know that too, I say. This isn't about the job itself. It's about priorities. It's about the fact that somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as my partner and started seeing you as, I don't know, an accessory to my life, something I could take for granted. I feel tears threatening again, but push through. The worst part is, I didn't even realize how much I'd changed until you left, until I saw our life through your eyes instead of mine. Ethan's expression softens slightly. What did you see? I saw someone who's been consistently supportive and understanding, even when I didn't deserve it, I say honestly. Someone who's celebrated every one of my successes without ever making me feel guilty about the sacrifices they required from you. I swallow hard, and I saw myself as someone who's been taking all of that for granted, someone who thought nothing of canceling plans with you for work, but would never dream of doing the reverse. Someone who, my voice catches, someone who made jokes at your expense to impress people who don't actually matter. Ethan looks down at his hands. That night with the clients, it wasn't just what you said, it was how easily you said it, like it was a thought you'd had many times before. I know, I whisper, and I'm so, so sorry, not just for saying it, but for ever thinking it. You're not boring, Ethan. You're steady and reliable and kind. You're the best thing in my life, and I've been treating you like an afterthought. Rain continues to fall around us, creating a private bubble in the middle of the city. I don't know if we can fix this, he says finally. I don't know if I can go back to being the person who's always understanding, always accommodating, always waiting for scraps of your attention. His words hit me like physical blows, but I know I deserve them. I'm not asking you to, I tell him. I'm asking for the chance to be different, to be better. I reach tentatively for his hand, relieved when he doesn't pull away. I love you, Ethan. Not the idea of you, not the convenience of you, you. He looks at our joined hands, then back at my face. I want to believe that. Then let me show you, I say. Day by day, no grand gestures, just consistent choices that prove you matter to me, more than work, more than anything. For the first time since that night, I see a flicker of something in his eyes that might be hope. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but it's a start. I need more time, he says finally, to think, to decide if I can trust this change. It's not the answer I hoped for, but it's one I understand. Take all the time you need, I tell him. I'll be waiting, and I'll be working on myself either way. As I stand to leave, he calls my name. Natalie? I turn back. Yes? That photography class I mentioned? I have a small exhibition next weekend, at that coffee shop on Elm Street. He hesitates. You could come if you want. A small invitation, but an invitation nonetheless. I'll be there, I promise. Nothing could keep me away. For the first time in days, he gives me a small, cautious smile. It's not much, but in this moment, it feels like everything. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting alone in our apartment, now just my apartment, sorting through mail. There's a postcard from Ethan's parents in Florida. They don't know yet. We agreed to wait before telling our families, holding on to the slim hope that this separation might be temporary. I've been making changes, small ones at first, then larger ones. I leave the office by 6 most days now. I've started declining non-essential meetings. I've even begun having lunch away from my desk, actually talking to colleagues instead of just emailing them from 3 feet away. Michael hasn't been thrilled with my new boundaries, but he's adjusting. The Singapore project is proceeding without me, with Jeremy at the helm, ironically enough. I still care about my career, but it no longer feels like the only thing that defines me. My phone rings. It's Lisa. How was the exhibition? She asks without preamble. It was, I search for the right word, revealing. Ethan's photographs were stunning, moody urban landscapes, intimate portraits of strangers on subway platforms, close-ups of overlooked beauty in everyday objects. They showed me a side of him I'd never fully appreciated, his eye for detail, his sensitivity, his quiet creativity. He's really talented, I tell Lisa, and I had no idea. I mean, I knew he was taking the classes, but I never actually asked to see his work. And how was it between you two? She asks carefully. Polite. Friendly even, but distant. I sigh. He introduced me to his classmates as Natalie, not my wife. Ouch. Yeah, I pick at a loose thread on the couch cushion. But I deserved that. After seeing his exhibition, I'd asked Ethan if he wanted to grab coffee. He'd agreed, and for an hour we sat in that cafe talking more openly than we had in months. About his photography, about my realizations, about everything except us. He's looking for an apartment, I tell Lisa, a place of his own. The silence on the other end of the line speaks volumes. It's really over, isn't it? I ask, voicing the fear that's been growing in me for days. I don't know, honey, Lisa says gently, but it sounds like he's made a decision. After we hang up, I walk through the apartment, seeing it with new eyes. Our home, soon to be just mine. How did I not notice this happening? How did I miss the signs that Ethan was slipping away? The doorbell rings, startling me. When I open it, Ethan is standing there, looking slightly uncomfortable. I forgot my external hard drive, he explains. It has all my photos on it, Of course, I say, stepping aside to let him in. I think it's in the office. He nods and heads down the hallway while I hover awkwardly in the living room, feeling like a guest in what used to be our shared space. When he returns, hard drive in hand, he pauses. I found a place, he says. Over in Riverside. It's small, but it has good light for photography. That's great, I manage, though the words taste bitter. He shifts his weight from one foot to the other. I'll come by this weekend to get the rest of my things if that's okay. Whatever works for you, I say automatically, then catch myself. Actually, no, it's not okay. He looks surprised. What? It's not okay, I repeat, finding my voice. None of this is okay, Ethan. I know I messed up, badly, but are we really just going to throw away 5 years because of one awful night? Because I've been selfish and thoughtless? It wasn't just one night, he says quietly. It was a pattern, a clear message that I wasn't a priority in your life. And I'm trying to change that, I insist. I have changed that. I declined the Singapore project. I've set boundaries at work. I came to your exhibition. I'm trying, Ethan. I know you are, he acknowledges, and I appreciate that. But maybe it's too late. Maybe we've grown too far apart. Or maybe you're just scared, I challenge, surprising us both. Scared that I'll fall back into old habits. Scared to trust me again. He doesn't deny it. Can you blame me? No, I admit. But I also know that what we had, what we could still have, is worth fighting for. At least to me. Ethan sighs, running a hand through his hair. I need to go, he says finally. I'll text you about this weekend. And just like that, he's gone again, taking another piece of my heart with him. Saturday morning, Ethan arrives with Mark to collect his things. They work efficiently, loading boxes into Mark's truck while I try to stay out of the way, pretending to read a book I can't focus on. When they're nearly finished, Ethan comes into the living room where I'm sitting. I think that's everything, he says. Except for the records. I thought maybe you might want to keep some of them. It's such a small thing, these vinyl records he's collected over the years. But the fact that he's willing to part with them, to split them like divorced parents sharing custody, makes the finality of the situation hit home. They're yours, I say, my voice breaking slightly. All of them. I never really appreciated them anyway, remember? He flinches at that, and I immediately regret the bitterness in my tone. I'm sorry, I say quickly. That wasn't fair. No, you're right, he says. You never did appreciate them, just like you never appreciated a lot of things. The words hang in the air between us, sharp and painful. I appreciate them now, I say quietly. Too late, I guess. Mark appears in the doorway. Truck's loaded, ready when you are, man. Ethan nods. I'll be right there. When Mark steps away, Ethan turns back to me. I don't want to end things with anger, he says. Despite everything, I still care about you, Natalie. Just not enough to stay, I whisper. He sighs. It's not about how much I care. It's about self-preservation, about finally putting myself first for once. And I can't argue with that because he's right. He deserves someone who sees him, who values him, who puts him first. All the things I failed to do until it was too late. I understand, I say, though my heart is breaking. I hope you find happiness, Ethan. I really do. He looks at me for a long moment, as if memorizing my face. Goodbye, Natalie, he says finally, and walks out of our home, out of my life, for the last time. 6 months later, I'm sitting at a cafe across from our old apartment building. I moved out 3 months ago. Too many memories, too much empty space. My new place is smaller, simpler. It suits the person I'm becoming. I'm waiting for Lisa, scanning the menu and trying not to think about the fact that this is where Ethan and I had our first date. But everything in this city seems to hold memories of him. Sorry I'm late, Lisa says, sliding into the seat across from me. Meeting ran long. She studies my face. You okay? You look tired. I'm fine, I say automatically, then correct myself. Actually, that's not true. I had a rough night. Want to talk about it? I sigh. I saw Ethan yesterday, at that bookstore on Maple Street. Lisa's eyebrows shoot up. How was that? Awful, wonderful, confusing. I stir my coffee absently. He was with someone, a woman. Oh, Nat, Lisa says sympathetically. I'm sorry. Don't be, I say, surprised to find I mean it. She seemed nice. They looked happy. And they had. I'd spotted them in the photography section, heads bent together over a book, laughing about something. Ethan had looked relaxed, more carefree than I'd seen him in years. When he noticed me, he'd smiled, a genuine smile, without the pain that had shadowed his eyes during our final months together. We'd exchanged pleasantries. He'd introduced me to Megan, a fellow photographer he'd met at a gallery opening. I'd been polite, even warm, fighting the urge to ask if they were serious, if she appreciated him the way I'd failed to. The worst part is, I wasn't even jealous, I tell Lisa now. I was just sad. Sad that someone else gets to discover all the wonderful things about him that I took for granted. Lisa reaches across the table to squeeze my hand. You've come a long way, you know that? 6 months ago, you would have been plotting how to win him back. She's right. The old Natalie would have seen Megan as competition, would have strategized a campaign to reclaim Ethan as methodically as she would have approached any work project. I don't want him back, I realize aloud. I mean, of course I miss him, but I want him to be happy, even if it's not with me, especially if it's not with me. That's called growth, Lisa says, smiling slightly. Painful, isn't it? I laugh despite myself. Excruciating. After lunch, I walk back to my new apartment, thinking about the changes these past months have brought. I'm still at Reynolds and Burke, but the job no longer consumes me. I've started volunteering at a literacy program on weekends. I've reconnected with friends I'd neglected. I've even been on a few dates, though nothing serious. I'm learning to be alone without being lonely, learning to value connections over accomplishments, learning to see people, really see them, instead of just what they can do for me. As I unlock my door, my phone buzzes with a text. It's from Sophia, of all people. Need a +1 for the charity gala next month. You in? A work event. Once I would have jumped at the networking opportunity. Now I consider it more carefully. Why me? I text back. Her response comes quickly. Because you're not an insufferable workaholic anymore, and because I think you could use a night out. I smile, surprised by how much her casual acknowledgement of my changes means to me. I'm in, I reply. Inside my apartment, I notice the small collection of vinyl records on my bookshelf, the ones Ethan insisted I keep when we divided our belongings. Start your own collection, he'd said. Find the music that speaks to you. I select one at random and place it on the turntable he also left behind. As the music fills the room, I think about the woman I was and the woman I'm becoming, about the lessons learned too late and the ones I'm still learning, about Ethan, who deserved better than I gave him, and who seems to have found it. I pour myself a glass of wine and move to the small balcony of my new apartment. The city stretches out before me, lights beginning to flicker on as dusk settles. So many lives unfolding, so many stories intersecting. Mine is just one of them. Not the most important, not the center of everyone else's universe. It's humbling to truly understand that for the first time. My phone buzzes again. This time, it's an email notification from work. Michael wants to discuss a potential promotion, team leader for the domestic accounts division. 6 months ago, I would have dropped everything to prepare a presentation, to strategize how to secure the position. Now, I simply mark the email as read and return to my wine. Monday will be soon enough to think about work. Tonight is for reflection. I think about the last time I saw Ethan before yesterday, the day he collected the last of his things from our old apartment. The finality of that goodbye, the weight of regret that followed me for weeks afterward. I hope you find happiness, I'd told him, and seeing him yesterday, I believe he has, or at least he's on his way there. What about me? Am I happy? Not entirely. Not yet, but I'm more at peace than I've been in a long time. There's something liberating about confronting your worst self, about acknowledging your mistakes without excuses or defensiveness, about rebuilding from the wreckage of who you once were. The record finishes playing, the needle lifting automatically. In the sudden silence, I hear my neighbor's laughter through the wall, the distant wail of a siren, the ordinary symphony of city life continuing around me. 2 weeks later, I'm standing in a small gallery downtown, surrounded by photographs. Not Ethan's this time, but the work of a local artist whose show opening Lisa dragged me to. What do you think of this one? She asks, pointing to a stark black and white image of an elderly couple sitting on a park bench, their hands intertwined. It's beautiful, I say, meaning it. The way they're leaning toward each other, like they're sharing a secret only they understand. Lisa looks at me appraisingly. You've gotten better at seeing the details. I'm trying to, I admit. Ethan taught me that, even if he didn't realize it, how to slow down, how to really look at things, at people, instead of just rushing past. We move through the gallery slowly, pausing before each photograph. I find myself imagining the stories behind them, the mundane moments made extraordinary through careful framing and perspective. I ran into Chad from accounting yesterday, Lisa says casually as we examine a cityscape. He asked about you. I glance at her, recognizing the matchmaking tone in her voice. Please tell me you didn't try to set us up. I might have mentioned you'd be here tonight, she admits with a grin. And he might have mentioned he's a fan of photography. I roll my eyes but can't help smiling. Lisa, what? He's nice, smart, definitely not boring. She winces slightly. Sorry, poor choice of words. It's fine, I assure her. And yes, Chad is nice, but I'm not ready for anything serious yet. Who said anything about serious? A coffee date isn't a marriage proposal. Before I can respond, I spot a familiar figure across the room, Ethan, with Megan. They haven't seen us yet, absorbed in conversation about one of the photographs. We can leave if you want, Lisa offers, following my gaze. I consider it for a moment, then shake my head. No, it's a public event. The city isn't big enough for us to avoid each other forever. As if sensing my attention, Ethan looks up. Our eyes meet across the crowded gallery. After a brief hesitation, he raises his hand in greeting. I return the gesture, feeling a complicated mix of emotions, sadness, fondness, and something else. Something like acceptance. Do you want to go say hello? Lisa asks. Not tonight, I decide. Let's give them space. We continue our tour of the gallery, careful to maintain a respectful distance from Ethan and Megan. It's strange how someone can be simultaneously so familiar and so much a stranger. Later, as Lisa and I are preparing to leave, I hear my name. I turn to find Ethan approaching alone. Natalie, he says. I thought that was you. Hi, Ethan, I reply, aiming for casual but not cold. Nice to see you again. Lisa mumbles something about checking out one last photograph and tactfully retreats, leaving us alone. How have you been? He asks, his voice genuine. Good, I say. Different but good. You? The same, he answers with a small smile. Different but good. An awkward silence falls between us, filled with unspoken words and shared history. Your friend seems nice, I offer finally. Megan, right? He nods. She is. We're taking things slow. That's good, I say, and mean it. You deserve someone who appreciates you, Ethan. He studies me for a moment, as if searching for the woman I used to be, the one who would have made that statement with an undercurrent of manipulation or self-pity. But she's gone, or at least she's changing. Thank you, he says simply. Then, unexpectedly, what about you? Are you seeing anyone? I shake my head. Not really. I'm focusing on, I don't know, becoming someone worth dating, I guess. The honesty of my answer seems to surprise him. You always were worth dating, Natalie. That wasn't the problem. Wasn't it? I ask quietly. He sighs. The problem was that you didn't see me. Not really, and maybe I didn't see myself either. Not clearly enough to stand up for what I needed. His words hit me with their simple truth. We both failed, in different ways. I by taking him for granted, he by allowing it for too long. I see you now, I tell him. Too late, but I do. Megan approaches, smiling politely. Sorry to interrupt, but we should probably head out if we want to make our dinner reservation. Of course, Ethan says. He turns back to me. It was good to see you, Natalie. You too, I reply. Both of you. Enjoy your evening. As they walk away, I feel a surprising lightness. Not the crushing weight of regret that has accompanied thoughts of Ethan for months, but something gentler. A bittersweet acknowledgement of what was lost, balanced by gratitude for the lessons learned. Lisa rejoins me, eyebrows raised questioningly. I'm okay, I assure her, linking my arm through hers. Really? And I am. Not perfectly healed, not completely transformed, but okay. Moving forward. So, about that coffee with Chad. Lisa begins as we step out into the cool night air. I laugh. Fine, one coffee, no promises. That's all I ask, she says triumphantly. As we walk to the subway, I think about the paths that bring people together and the choices that drive them apart. About Ethan, who taught me more in leaving than he ever could have if he'd stayed. About the person I was, the person I am, and the person I'm working to become. I went out one night with my boss instead of him, and he took it to heart and decided to leave me. It sounds so simple, so trivial when reduced to a single sentence. But within that moment was the culmination of countless smaller choices, countless missed opportunities to show someone they mattered. The city hums around me, full of people making their own choices, learning their own lessons, some the easy way, others, like me, the hard way, but learning nonetheless. Tomorrow is Monday. I'll go to work, meet with Michael about the promotion, approach it with a new perspective, one that values balance and boundaries. I'll call my mother, something I've been doing more regularly these days. I might even text Chad about that coffee. Small choices, daily choices, the kind that strung together over time define who we are and who we become, the kind I once made carelessly, but now make with intention. I look up at the night sky, barely visible above the city lights, and make a silent promise, not to Ethan, who has moved on without me, but to myself, to remember that success is hollow without connection, that ambition is meaningless without compassion, that no career achievement can replace the simple joy of being truly seen and valued by another person. And if someday I'm fortunate enough to find love again, I'll carry these hard-earned lessons with me. I'll remember the cost of taking someone for granted. I'll remember Ethan. As Lisa and I descend into the subway station, I feel something I haven't experienced in months. Hope. Not for reconciliation, that chapter is closed, but for what lies ahead. For the chance to apply what I've learned. For the opportunity to be a better partner, a better friend, a better human. It's not a happy ending, not in the traditional sense, but perhaps it's something more valuable, a new beginning, tempered by wisdom that only comes from loss. A second chance to get things right, even if it's with someone else. And for now, that's enough.